referred to sometimes as Grandmother Mago, but known to many as Halmi. She is the most powerful being in all of Saju. A shapeshifter, a guardian, a giver, and grandmother. The mother of all shamans.
The title of this exhibition is called Child of Magohalmi and the Echoes of Creation. And I first came about this title, or thinking about it, because I wanted to basically think about myself in a genealogical succession of, let's say, an ancestral grandmother spirit who I've been thinking about for the past few years, thinking about this grandmother narrative. The main overarching idea for this project kind of centers around a forgotten Korean creation myth. And at the center of this myth is Grandmother Mago, or in Korean, Magohalmi. Halmi is actually a shortened version for the more polite word halmoni, which means grandmother. Halmi actually is a translation, you can think of like old lady or crone, which I also thought was interesting. This figure was kind of erased throughout history. Previously in Korean, I guess, storytelling, everything was told orally. And as soon as everything started being written down, let's say within the Confucius era, stories about women were forgotten and erased and I guess deemed unimportant to be written down and recorded. The overarching idea of the story was to kind of elevate this goddess figure, this deity, and kind of recreate, loosely inspired by the original origin myth, and conflate that with ideas of orca pod from Vancouver, where I'm from, and they had been led by a matriarch grandmother figure, and her colloquial name was Granny, and her scientific name was J2. And she passed away in 2016. People think either between the ages of like 80 to 106. What was really fascinating about Granny, or J2, was she basically, she guided and she protected and she, I guess, disseminated a lot of knowledge and survival skills to her entire family. And I thought that was a really interesting correlation, thinking about grandmothers or elderly people who, disseminate valuable knowledge to their families and for generations to come. So the first iteration of Child of Magohalmi and the Echoes of Creation started as a live performance presentation in Walthamstow for Art Night, London 2019. And that was kind of the original start off for what this now exhibition has become. And for that, I basically wanted to create a kind of durational performance that was punctuated by a film. So while I was in Vancouver, my collaborative partner, Benito, and we worked on a film together. I came back and edited it in London. And whilst I was making it, I kind of started envisioning what the performance would be. And in London, we basically had a performance, about 30 to 45 minutes, the video, and then again, different successions of performances throughout the night. For this presentation at the Warr Pavilion, I really wanted to kind of think about the entire project kind of scaled into one space. We've partitioned 3 different spaces within the gallery. And so I guess going back to my idea of the exhibition kind of transforming depending on where it would go through space and geographical space at the same time, I wanted audience members to have that sensation whilst walking through the galleries. So, you have zone 1, or the first galleries we call it, which we're sitting in right now, which I kind of imagined a little bit to be referential to the Vancouver landscape. So this color that we've painted the walls, when Benito and I were in Vancouver a few months ago, we were looking around the landscape and looking at the light and really trying to think about what that light looks like. It's a very specific, overcast, a little bit gray, but still really beautiful, especially when you're standing next to the ocean. And that's the kind of feeling that I wanted to I guess, emulate within this gallery space. And in some ways, I feel like the parquet floor almost looks like sand. So that's the first gallery. And then when you step into the second, this is like a darkened space, and we have colored lighting, we have the film playing, we have the giant pillow stuffed orca, which you're able to lean against and cuddle beside and watch the film. And in that space, I'm thinking of it almost as like, I guess, walking through another dimension or going through the cosmos. It has this kind of like, I guess, like galactic feel to it, I would think, or even a kind of a non-space. I often think about the deep ocean and outer space to be very similar in the sense that they're spaces that most people feel we understand, but very few of us have actually physically experienced. And I think because of this, it allows for so much in the imagination to kind of explore. And you're able to think of it being any type of space. It's very moldable. And then the third space, I wanted to kind of create almost like a shamanic room. And so there's a painting at the very end of the space, which is a portrait of my idea of what Magohalmi looks like. And I've kind of modeled her after like a typical Asian lady that I would see in Chinatown in Vancouver, kind of a working class older woman who's worked really hard her whole life. And for me, that is like the kind of the precipice or the apex of what the female kind of grandmother goddess in my mind looks like. And then we have that conflated with an image of the dorsal fin of Granny, who in my mind, in the narrative, they're kind of the same figure.